My name is Liz McKissick, and I'm your host of You Learn, You Turn today. And I'm so excited. We have with us Brian Cuban, and I could read his entire bio, which is about 5 pages, because he is so active in the recovery community and in life itself. But I'm going to let him tell us about himself, what he wants us to know. And with that, I'm just going to welcome you, Brian. Thank you for your time today.
Thanks, Liz. Where are you? Where are you located?
We're in Greenville, South Carolina.
Okay, never been.
You got to come. It's a nice
I'm in Dallas.
place.
Well,
Yep.
It's great to be on your show, and as you know, I'm a person in long-term recovery. I'm in recovery from cocaine addiction, alcohol addiction, as well as traditional and exercise bulimia. Yes, guys do get eating disorders. About 30% of all those with eating disorders are in fact male. Although
Wow.
only 1 in 10 will seek treatment. That's how, even in 2021, how stigmatized eating disorders are for men.
Right.
I was born in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I am a boomer in the middle of 3 boys. I have an older brother, Mark, who people know from Shark Tank and the Dallas Mavericks and crypto and all that stuff. I have a younger brother, Jeff. They both live here in Dallas, walking distance to me. My mom still lives in Pittsburgh in the house we grew up in. In my path to being an attorney and then to being an author certainly wasn't a straight line. And to give you kind of an example of what my life was like as a practicing lawyer, how chaotic it was, struggling with addiction, I want to take you back to June of 2006.
All right.
The Dallas Mavericks are going to the NBA championship for the very first time. My brother Mark had bought the team in January of 2000, and we had had some success going to the playoffs and such. But this was our first trip to the big show. And as you might imagine, I was going to get some pretty good seats for those games. And I also had the opportunity to get some tickets for friends. So I called up my brother. He said, "Sure, Brian, come on over, get the tickets." Do you think I gave them to my friends? No. You're probably thinking I sold them on eBay for some astronomical amount, right? Thinking like a lawyer. I didn't do that either, because that would have been disrespectful to Mark, to the team. I took those 2 tickets that were meant for my friends and traded them to my cocaine dealer for $1,000 in cocaine.
Well, there you go.
Selling them on eBay was disrespectful, but trading them to my cocaine dealer was perfectly acceptable. How the mind works in addiction.
Yeah.
My dealer shows up at my house. I was high class. He delivered. I hand him the tickets. He hands me this giant Ziploc baggie of cocaine. I go running up to my home office, dump it out on this large wooden desk, this mountain of pile of cocaine. I'm looking at it like I'm Scarface. I wanted to go rub my nose in it. And I take this dollar bill and a credit card and line some out. And cocaine users were a funny bunch. And I'm not one anymore. But we're kind of ironic. Well, in pandemic times, they wash their hands, use the hand sanitizer, but we'll stick a dollar bill up our nose that's been used by God knows who and had God knows what on it, right? Go figure. But cocaine, in my 20th year as a practicing lawyer, had long stopped giving me the feeling of self-love and self-acceptance and that high that I achieved when I did it in a bathroom of a nightclub in Dallas, Texas, the summer of 1987, and instantly became psychologically addicted to it and then would become physically dependent. Addicted to the feeling of looking in the mirror for the first time in my life and loving myself, albeit with artificial substances. Now it was just pain and shame. And I was unable to stop. And the paranoia. I thought I heard the cops outside. I go and peek out my window. There's no one out there, but I'm all paranoid now. So I put the cocaine back in the giant Ziploc baggie. I drive to a Lowe's where I buy electrical faceplate outlets, a drill, and a saw. I drive back home. I go to the drywall.
I'm very confused.
I go back home and I go to the drywall in my closets and I cut and I drill these fake outlets, these fake electrical outlets in the closets. And I take the cocaine and put it behind in all these smaller baggies, and I slap it in behind the drywall, behind all these fake electrical outlets, and seal them back up. Like I'm thinking I'm the smartest lawyer ever hiding my cocaine. Like the DEA, the cops, and the drug dogs have never seen that before. And then I lined out some more and just pain and shame. And I'm all paranoid again. And it was never, maybe, Brian, you have a problem. It was, Brian, maybe you need to change drug dealers. Brian, maybe you need to switch out the Grey Goose for the Jack Daniels to find the better equilibrium of alcohol and blow. And the paranoia, I go back to the electrical outlets about an hour later, take all the small cocaine baggies back out, put it back in the giant baggie, go to my master bathroom and flush it down the toilet. Now it's $900 of cocaine. Flushed it all down the toilet because I was paranoid. The next morning comes, I wake up. Brian, did you flush all your cocaine down the toilet last night? You're an idiot. Who does that? There's another game tonight. I call Mark again. I get 2 more tickets. I call my drug dealer again. He shows up at my house. He said, dude, you did all that last night? I don't want to tell him I flushed it down the toilet like a moron. I said, yes, give it to me. Give me more. Okay, here you go. Back up to my home office, rinse, wash, repeat. Dump it out on the desk like I'm Scarface. One more time. Line it out. And again, just pain and shame and chasing the high and chasing the feeling that was never going to come again. And the paranoia again. I gather it all back up, go back to those fake electrical outlets that I had created the night before, hide it again. 2 hours later, take it back out again for the second time, go back to that same bathroom, drop to my knees like I had done so many times before, hoping, praying for someone or something to take away the pain and shame of my addiction, and flushed it down the toilet again. They say when Dallas flushes, it runs downhill to Houston. So I think some people in Houston had a little hop in their step those 2 nights. The quote unquote insanity of addiction, doing the same thing over and over the same way and hoping for a different result. And addiction is not insane. It's a biological brain-based process that has genetic factors, environmental trigger factors, social factors that affect so many of us, our parents, our siblings, ourselves, our loved ones, our friends, our children. And it is an epidemic. We lost, just in 2020, we lost 93,000 people to fatal overdoses, opioid overdoses in 2020. And for me, it wasn't just cocaine. At 18, I developed, as a freshman at Penn State, I developed 2 eating disorders, exercise and traditional bulimia. By 21, I had become an alcoholic at Penn State.
Can we stop real quick there about because I've read most of your book, The Addicted Lawyer, the body dysmorphia. Can you tell our listeners what that is? Because I had to look it up.
Sure. Body dysmorphic disorder is when someone takes a small or even non-existent perceived defect in their body. It could be a blemish, it could be a zit, it could be, for me, it was my stomach, and exaggerates it in their perceived reflection to the point where it affects their ability to function, quote unquote, normally in life. Every time I looked in the mirror, I saw this huge stomach, no matter how thin I got, no matter how muscular, when I abused steroids. And I was diagnosed with body dysmorphic disorder in my 40s. It affects men and women equally, about 2% of the population, 1 to 2% of the population. It is not an eating disorder. It is sometimes stereotyped as an eating disorder. It has a very high correlation to suicide, to addiction, to self-harm, to steroid use, anabolic steroid use. It is a very devastating illness. Some people don't leave their house.
How do you know you had it? I mean, how?
It was
so you say you were diagnosed at 40. You went to therapy? It was a joint exploration with
my therapist, who had never heard of it before, and going through my symptoms. And he had to, it's a very, again, very stigmatized and isn't something that is known by everyone. And people today, I throw around body dysmorphia like it's a fashion statement, when it is actually a very serious DSM-5 diagnosis in the obsessive compulsive, on the obsessive compulsive disorder spectrum.
See, I thought it was, I still, until you just told me that, thought it was something to do with weight, had to do with weight. So you saw yourself as fat when you were really thin. That's what I thought it was.
It has to do with how you perceive yourself in the mirror and what behaviors that leads to.
So you had that bulimia and exercise. Tell me about the exercise.
Exercise bulimia is obsessive compulsive exercise for the primary purpose of offsetting calories. I began running 10 miles a day, 20 miles a day. Well, I was also binging and purging, and I was also now drinking heavily as well.
Wow. I'm surprised your heart didn't stop.
There was a lot of stress on my body, a lot of stress on my body.
So how long did that behavior, so you started, when would you say you started your drinking career? Like
as
15?
As a sophomore. Well, I mean, I drank in high school and things like that, but it really didn't become a daily or a problematic thing until I got into college.
Okay. And the cocaine, when did that start?
That started in Dallas in 1980, summer of 1987. So I was 26.
Okay. And then the body dysmorphia, and then
The body dysmorphia had started back when in my tweens. I was fat shamed heavily as a child, trending towards obese. I was even physically assaulted. I was fat shamed at home. And I'll tell you about this, but I want to make it clear to everyone, I do not blame my parents for anything I went through. Parent blaming, I don't do that. Parents don't cause eating disorders. Parents don't cause addiction. There's a difference between cause and correlation. And so things that go on.
Do you think that's part of that generation was stay small or stay fit? And I mean, I don't think they knew any better.
Well, no, I don't want to generalize like this. I would say that's more the current generation than the boomer generation.
Really?
My mother was fat shamed by her mother, who was probably fat shamed by my great grandmother.
Generational
my mother had
thing.
A very verbally abusive and mentally abusive relationship with her mother, who struggled with psychiatric issues. My mom struggled with her own mental health issues at a time when, in the 70s, where a woman admitting they had a mental health issue, you could be put in an asylum. So you just didn't talk about these things. And so a young mother with mental health issues in the 70s, she had no coping tools, and it runs downhill. I would come home from school and I would be eating Chef Boyardee ravioli out of the can. And my mother would come home from selling real estate and she would say, "Brian, if you keep eating that way, you're going to be a fat pig." The exact words her mother said to her. Fat shaming in families is often generational and is often passed down generationally. But not understanding all of these things and what my own mother was going through, you grow depressed, right? And I ate more and more to quell my depression, and I got heavier and heavier. And as kids change at school for what other kids perceive in the negative, the bullying started. I was bullied severely, and we call it junior high. In Texas, it's called middle school. Junior high and high school in Pittsburgh. And it all culminated, Liz, one day, what I call the day of the gold pants. My brother Mark had given me a pair of shiny gold bell-bottom disco pants. This was the 1970s. Saturday Night Fever had just become huge. John Travolta in his tight white slim pants, right? And, that wasn't me. And Mark even taught disco. So he had all these kind of disco clothes. This was the mid-70s. And he gave me a pair of them, and I love my brother, and I was so happy to get these shiny gold bell-bottom disco pants from him, but they fit him okay. He wasn't a big guy. I had to jump up and down, spray the water bottle. My butt looked like 15 cats back there trying to get out. But I didn't care, and I got those pants on, and I wore them to school.
Good for you.
The kids taunted me and made fun of me, and on my stomach hanging over, and my, how tight they were on my butt. But in my mind, Liz, these were the popular kids. Remember, this is before the internet. My images of popularity and acceptance were the people I saw every day. The kids getting their first kiss, the kids going to the football games, McDonald's, the kids going to the prom. And in my mind, they were all good looking, right? And thin. And this is what I wanted. That is how I judged acceptance. I was the middle child in that classic middle child syndrome. Very needing of acceptance, and really internalized anything negative said about me and wore it as who I was, like a skin tight suit, like those skin tight pants. I'm walking home with school with these kids and they're taunting me, but in my mind, they're the popular kids. And I figure it's like a fraternity hazing. You stick with it long enough and they'll accept you. But that's not how bullying works. And so they start making fun of the pants, and they decide I'm too fat to wear these pants. And a mile from my house, on a busy sidewalk of a busy street. They attacked me, and they tore my shiny gold bell-bottom disco pants off me, ripped them in the shreds, threw them out in the middle of a busy street, down to my Fruit of the Loom tighty whities, my Pittsburgh Pirates t-shirt, my Keds tennis shoes, my tube socks. They went on high-fiving like they had done the greatest thing ever. I gather up the shreds and waddle home. And I get in our house and I go downstairs into our basement, and the wooden stairs creak. And with every creak of those stairs I thought the whole world knew my shame. I thought it echoed through the city of Pittsburgh, every creak of those stairs. And the whole world knew that I didn't know how to stand up to bullies, and that I was a fat pig who would never be loved by his mother, who loved him dearly, was just struggling with her own issues, who loved me dearly. I would never get married, never have my first kiss, would never be respected. It would never. And so I hid those shreds at the bottom of a wastebasket, hoping it would hide and forever bury my shame, like I buried it in that wastebasket. But that's not how trauma works, is it? No. The body remembers. The body keeps the score. And trauma threads through our life. We're all an accumulation of trauma to one degree or another, and how it impacts our adult lives. And that event was so traumatic to me that I could go to that spot in Pittsburgh, PA, and show you exactly where it happened.
Wow.
And that is when I began to see a different Brian in the mirror. See a fat pig who would never be loved.
Well, so that was when you were a tween. That's horrible as a mom of a boy. I can't imagine. That's heartbreaking. And yet here you are at this age, triumphant over your substance use disorder and your eating disorders. It sounds like you're in recovery from all. I just wanted to ask, what was it that got you? You say that that hiding the cocaine and the paranoia. What was it that brought you to your knees that finally helped you give up? Did you go to treatment? Was it a DUI?
To give you a chronology of the journey, in 2005, I became suicidal and decided to end my life by suicide. And I was very lucky. I sent a disturbing email to a friend, and he contacted my two brothers, and they came to my house and dragged me kicking and screaming on my first of two trips to a psychiatric hospital here in Dallas. And then 3 failed marriages after that, all relating to drugs and alcohol, none of them lasting more than 2 years. Jail, I got arrested for DWI. And then finally, in the summer of our Easter weekend, 2007, I'd begun dating a woman. Her name is Amanda, and she had just moved in with me, and she knew nothing about my issues. I had done pretty well in being able to wear these masks that we get so good at wearing so people don't see how ugly we feel inside. And we spend all this energy wearing these masks. And the problem is that when you spend all that energy, it's very hard for love and feelings to get out, and it's very hard for you to allow love to get in, and hence 3 marriages that didn't last more than 2 years. So we started dating, and it was Easter weekend 2007. She went away to Houston to visit her parents. I went out. The next thing I knew, it was 2 days later. It was Sunday afternoon. She's looking down at me in bed. I'd had a 2-day blackout. I didn't know how I got in my room, how I got in my bedroom. There was cocaine everywhere. There was black market Xanax because I had been cocaining through the nights and Xanaxing through the days. Vicious cycle. And there's alcohol bottles. She's probably trying to figure out, she's a lawyer. She's probably trying to figure out if she walked in the right house. I'm trying to figure out what Law and Order episode orgy of evidence I can, how I can explain this Law and Order orgy of evidence that I might not be the person I represented myself to be to her, right? This respectable lawyer. And all I could think of was kind of a metaphorical running back home to mama. I said, take me back to, I named the psychiatric hospital. And it was, you've been to a psychiatric hospital? Yeah, we'll talk about that later. But I really just wanted time to think of a good lie to explain the thing that there was only one explanation for, right? And so we're standing in the parking lot of Green Oaks, again, for the second time in my life. And a few things occurred to me in that parking lot. One, there wouldn't be a third trip back. I'd be dead. At this time, I would use a weapon. Two, that she was going to leave me. I'd leave, right? She actually stood by me. We dated for over a decade. Well, I found recovery and rebuilt a broken trust. And we have now been married going on 5 years and have been together over 15 years. So
Congratulations.
thanks.
That's wonderful.
Not all marriages will survive these things, but ours was able to. One, because she's a saint, and two, because I did the recovery work for me, right? Because in addiction, with eating disorders, whatever it is, people do leave. This is life. People die, pets die, trauma happens, and all of that can be a trigger to relapse. All of that. And the other thing that occurred to me in that parking lot as I waited for intake was something my father said to Mark, Jeff, and I growing up. My father, who was the greatest generation, was a CB, fought in the Pacific Battle of Okinawa, fought in Korea. He and his older brother had a what's known as an auto trim shop in Pittsburgh for over 40 years. They they reupholstered seats in cars, put on convertible tops, reupholstered couches. Very middle class, working class guy. Didn't go to college. Had a business certificate. And he said, wherever you go in life, and my father was the middle of three boys like me. He'd say, guys, wherever you go in life, whatever happens, always check on your brother. Always pick up the phone. Always tell your brother you love him. Make sure your brother is okay. And I thought about that. And my father was passing down a gift of family. That is a privilege, because I talk to so many people that come from broken families, estranged families, especially where addiction is concerned, right?
Right.
And so having a tight family core and a loving family core is a privilege that I acknowledge. Among other privileges that I have that I would be disingenuous not to acknowledge: skin color privilege, financial privilege, right? And very few people have the privilege that I've had. A billionaire brother willing to do anything for me. And so I won't be intellectually dishonest about that. I enjoy that, those privileges. I didn't take advantage of them, but they were there. Didn't always take advantage. But I thought about what he said to us, and I wasn't ready to lose my family. And I wasn't going to lose their love. And if you want to know how that gift of family stuck, Liz, all these decades later, 1,200 miles from Pittsburgh, PA, and Dallas, here in Dallas, Texas. Yeah, so that's how that gift stuck. We all live walking distance from each other. And until my father passed away, he lived across the street from me.
That is wonderful. God, family can get you through so much. What does your recovery look like today as far as, are you don't have to say whether you're abstinence, but do you do AA? Do you do,
no,
what do you do?
I mean, my path is abstinence. I think my path is abstinence. That's not the only recovery path out there. There are many different ones, especially around opioids with harm reduction. I know people on Suboxone and methadone.
Yep.
And so there are many different pathways to recovery. But mine had to be abstinence. I was only given two options when I went in and finally got honest with my psychiatrist, who I had been lying to for 2 years, and getting antidepressants while I'm also drinking and doing blow. That works out well. People ask me, why would you lie to your psychiatrist? You're paying them to help you. Well, shame knows no hourly rate, right?
Yeah.
I was ashamed, and I finally started getting honest. And I was only given two options: residential and 12-step. And 12-step is AA, but there are others. And I chose 12-step. And so my path has been abstinence. I haven't been to one in person in a while, but I still attend video 12-step meetings, speaker meetings. I am still in therapy once a week. I've had to do a lot of work on my body image issues. I've had to do a lot of work on the underlying trauma from my childhood. And because 12-step is designed to, cure the desire, to help with the desire to stop drinking, right? That I had to deal with how I got there, which was healing my little boy. And so I do those things today, and I use mindfulness. I have my moderate exercise routine, which is my greatest recovery struggle today, my relationship with exercise and food. That would be the greatest recovery struggle today.
I can relate to every single thing you said. The substances you struggle with, mine as well. I don't know if I had the body dysmorphia, but I definitely struggled with anorexia and bulimia in college. I went to a school where everybody was so tiny, and I had no idea that I thought there was nothing wrong with me until I went to the school, And among my peers, I was big. And for the first time in my life, I looked down and didn't like what I saw and became obsessed with it. And
Sure.
it's funny because, and that's when my drinking really took off. But drinking, anorexia, bulimia, all that to me went together. And, looking at the science of the brain, I was trying to get flooded with dopamine because I was starving my body. And the
Sure.
alcohol was giving me the dopamine. So it was
There's
just this
about
vicious cycle.
Sure. There's a 50%, the last stat I looked at, there's a 50% co-occurring correlation between eating disorders and substance use disorder.
Yeah, it
About
just makes sense
50% of
to
all
me.
those with an eating disorder will also have a substance use disorder.
And what the cocaine did was allows you to not eat and never be hungry and really be thin. So that was a vicious cycle. So I can really, and the paranoia and all of that. I want to talk a minute about your profession and all that goes with it, the stress and everything. And I found a survey that was done in 2016, so I can only imagine how much it's changed and how much worse it's gotten now with the pandemic. But there was one survey that surveyed, 3,300 law students from 15 law schools, found that 25% were at risk for alcoholism, 17% suffer from depression, and 37% report severe anxiety. And then 6%, which I know it's much higher, report having suicidal thoughts.
Sure. You're referring to the law student well-being survey done by David Jack.
That's right. That's exactly right. And then the other one, more than 13,000 working lawyers responded that 28% have depression, 19% have anxiety, and 11.4%. So this is a different one, but 11.4% had suicidal ideation. And it goes on to say that they're terrified of somebody finding out that they have a problem because they may not be admitted to the bar. So they're the ones suffering the most, and yet they're the least to admit they have a problem. Tell me what you're doing to change this. How can we get lawyers talking and raising their hand?
Because when you speak out, you give other people permission to speak out. We have lawyers assistance programs who are there for lawyers. Law firms are starting to do a lot more in terms of providing the system, putting systems in place for lawyers who are struggling to find help. But there's always going to be a stigma. There's always going to be a stigma in the profession to some degree or another. But because there's a stigma in general in public, right? You don't want people to find out. It's shameful. Lawyers have a alcoholism rate, a problem drinking rate, twice the normal public. And
why? Why do you think? Why is that?
There are various hypotheses for that, but I mean we're a profession that has been socialized through law school and just how we govern ourselves over the years that showing vulnerability is weakness and can cost us our jobs. We take advantage of it. We don't allow ourselves to show it, right, in a safe setting in the adversarial process. So I think that's one of the big reasons we don't allow ourselves. We view it as weakness to be vulnerable.
Well, how do you see that changing? Besides just speaking out, I know that you also speak, like you do public speaking all over the country. And is that raising awareness for attorneys or for lawyers?
I mean, I hope so. I get emails telling me that I am doing that. But we need bar associations to do better outreach. We need we need state bars to invest more in lawyer wellness. We need law firms to invest more in lawyer wellness. We need to reach out to the solo practitioners and do better outreach, because that's the majority of the profession. There's so much social isolation in our profession, and so. How do you know someone is isolated? How do you know if they're struggling? How do they know if they're struggling? We need to do better in reaching out to them. And it just takes time. It takes time.
Well, thank you so much for all you do. I would love for you to tell the audience a little bit about the books. You've written 3 books, right? You may have written more, but I found 3. Tell us a little bit about each one and where they can find them, because they're
Sure. My
great.
first book about my struggle with body dysmorphic disorder is called Shattered Image. And that's more about eating disorders and body image. And that's on Amazon. And my second book, The Addicted Lawyer, which is my memoir of struggling through addiction and, well, trying to be a practicing lawyer and in law school and such. That is also on Amazon. And my third book, which is coming out in December, a complete break from what I usually do, is a novel. It is a thriller, legal thriller, and it's called The Ambulance Chaser. It is about
I pre-ordered.
a lawyer. Thank you. It is about a lawyer who is a personal injury lawyer who finds himself accused of the murder of a high school classmate 30 years ago after her remains are discovered. And he becomes a fugitive from justice to find the one person who also happens to be a high school classmate who's gone off the grid, who can prove his innocence and save the life of his abducted son.
Wow. How do you have the time to write a book? Do you do it in the morning? Do you do it in the afternoon? What's your routine to write?
The pandemic gave me the time because there weren't many people doing public speaking.
True. Well, good for you. Well, maybe this is a new career, writing fiction, sort of loosely based on your life.
We'll see how it's received, but I had one in me, so I wrote it.
That is fantastic. Well, before we go, I just want to say you're amazing. All that you're doing for recovery, and I mean, your story is amazing. And if anyone wants to get real detail, The Addicted Lawyer is a fantastic read. And is there anything else you'd like to leave with our audience about you or about anything? I'll put your website and all that in the details.
I'll leave you with, I think it's important that we take care of each other. These are tough times. We're isolated. Depression is up. Problem drinking is up. Substance use is up. It's important that we reach out and ask people how they're doing. And before that conversation breaks, make sure they know that you're there for them. And it can't be performance art, right? If you ask somebody how they're doing, be ready to help if they say they need it.
Agree. What a great way to end. Well, thank you so much for your time. I love meeting you, and we'll see you next time on the podcast.
Thanks, Liz. You have a great day.